Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Good, thank you for coming. This is our 10th year of doing this at the Expo. It's a long time. But how many of you have been to one of our panels before? Excellent.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. My name is Saito. I'm a horror film producer and horror screenwriter. To my left is Melanie McCurdie. Go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm a horror author in the city. I've got 23 books out on Amazon and there's some for free if you guys want to go check them out. You can go ahead and do that. I also am slowly working on a screenplay with the help of my friend here because he knows more than I do. To my right, we have writer extraordinaire, Terry Sherwood.
No.
Yeah. No,
Terry, you're not Morg and you're not I'm Morg. Do you want to tell people about yourself?
Yeah. What I do is I'm very fortunate to be a Rotten Tomatoes film critic for independent horror, not exclusively independent horror, but I get to do that. I write for a UK site called Bloody Flicks, which I recommend heartily because of the fact that they do a lot of festival work. Anything that's a festival in North America, you've got short films or whatever, and you somehow get hooked up with them. Perhaps you'll get me, as a person who gets to do that. Plus, horror screens video, which is what I do as well. And there's another one called Horror Asylum. Unfortunately, they're all in the UK, but through the benefit of the internet, we're all one big happy horror family.
Terry is a bit of an expert on hammer horror.
Yes.
But I do know a few things. Let's put it this way. I've seen some of those films. I'm going to date myself. Some of the ones I've seen in first release in theater. Not the early 50s ones, because I was too young. But yeah, I know a few things. So if you have questions on that.
Yeah, so it's an open panel. Yeah, it's about the state of horror 2024. So we plan to discuss movies from the last year, games, books, anything that you would like to ask questions on or step up to the mic and just talk. That's what we're here for.
I'd like to preface that. Generally, when they say come to the mic, please speak clearly, because some of us have suffered from rock and rollitis. I played for years in a band as a drummer, and I'm paying for it now, but it's the price we pay to have fun.
At least he has an excuse, I'm just old.
So we have a bunch of prizes to give away this year. Who are fans of The Conjuring? Okay. What's your favorite Conjuring spin-off? Just speak up. Annabelle. Who said that?
It's okay, you're in safe hands.
It helps to answer quick.
This is not a serious panel. We're not all dead people here. Lighten up a bit, for God's sake.
Here you go. Now this is courtesy of Phoenix Comics. A great place to go for your horror comics and horror figures.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. So,
Okay, I have a question. Who has seen Late Night with the Devil? Any thoughts? I'm curious about what your thoughts are on it.
I really liked Late Night with the Devil. There's a growing community on YouTube of independent filmmakers making short series that are, a lot of the style is based in like analog technology, so like VHS tapes, and a lot of them are mixed multimedia. And I felt a lot of that showing in Late Night with the Devil. I have seen a lot of discourse online where people are like, oh, it's boring. But I thought it was more of a slow burn, which you gotta respect a slow burn with setup and payoff, but I really liked the presentation of, like, it was presented as, we just found these tapes and we're distributing them.
I think for me, having grown up in the 70s, it was very 70s visually, and that really did it for me as well. And also it felt like we were watching a documentary. Jim and I were saying that it was, for a short movie, the longest movie we had seen in a very long time.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes and it
Felt like it was 2.5 hours. It was great, and I thought that the visual effects were really well done too.
But it's because it was so engaging. They actually captured the look of the 70s extremely well. The hairstyles, the clothing, that kind of thing. And we really enjoyed it. Hi.
Hey, I was just wondering, like, just a general consensus, how are we feeling about, like, the horror streaming services? Because I've got Shudder and I've got Arrow, if anyone has them on, that I haven't heard of. Like, just the selection and curation, like, what's the community consensus about it? Are we happy, sad, disappointed?
That's a good question.
It is. Well, I have Shudder. And really, the only reason I have Shudder is to watch The Last Dragon with Joe Bob Briggs. Tubi has a lot of stuff. There's so many horror channels. I run a program called Plex, and there have to be like 20 free horror channels, but it's all public domain stuff. So it's not the kind of thing that you're going to find basically anywhere. But streaming itself, I mean, enjoy it because the big studios don't know where it's going. You know, there's so much disarray in the industry right now. Whether to release something theatrically, whether to shoot it over to streaming right away. And a lot of the streamers are going under. So it's, it's hard to choose. But, the stuff is out there. But unfortunately, you have to subscribe to every one of these stupid channels.
I'm also finding on YouTube that there are a lot of indie shorts on there that are actually fairly decent. Thankfully, I have young men in my life, my kids, who are very into that, so I get a lot of links sent to me, and I get to watch these really fascinating little shorts. A lot of the analog is, I really like it. It's really different. Maybe it's the way of the future, the past, you know what I mean?
You said into shorts, I immediately thought of laundry. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
A simple just joke for me.
YouTube actually is kind of an invaluable resource if you're looking for something older, because sometimes that's the only place you can find it. I watched a film called A Howling in the Woods that starred Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman. And it was a made-for-TV movie thing that was shot just after I Dream of Jeannie was canceled. So it's old, it's okay for a made-for-TV movie. So, you'll find the odd thing there that's rare, very rare.
What sort of horror do you like? That's a general question, because it's, forgive me if I'm saying this, but it's a splintered group now. It's like music, you go, if you're a metal fan, how many different types of metal? Bands that I thought were metal are not metal, they're blues rock. AC/DC has started being blues. I'm going, what's going on? Anyway, what sort of do you like? Do you like ghost films? Do you like slasher, found footage, this type of thing, cult films.
Show of hands,
Yeah.
those who like gore.
Go to 17th Avenue.
Who likes supernatural films? Okay, who likes folk horror?
I love the UCP for that. I understand. I had to do that. May I just interject about streaming services? You mentioned about them going down. What they do is they restructure. Disney restructured, Criterion, which is a fabulous channel if you get a chance. It's easy, I think it's like $20 or something to start out. Recommend that. You can see Guillermo del Toro's early stuff on it. They restructured and they're doing well. They're hooked up with TCM as well, which brings some stuff. There's another channel that I sometimes use, and you need a VPN, you didn't hear that. It's called Screenbox. It's available only in New York. If you do the New York server, I can say that. It's, if you have something like that. There's another British channel called Arrow. Yeah. Their cult stuff and their horror stuff is always like prime editions, like really good. You're not going to see some of the stuff that you see on YouTube, with the ghosting and crap and stuff and everything like that. But I recommend those. There's another one called Midnight Pulp. Midnight Pulp. It used to be like a garbage app. You kind of put on it and they didn't care, but then somebody bought it and they put all this really cool stuff on it. It's a Google app. I don't work for Google. It's called Midnight Pulp.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a question?
I do. So kind of tying together the analog and the different genres of horror, did you guys see SinInc? And what did you think of it?
They've had it in.
I never watched it.
I did, and I'm one of the few that it did not do it for me. It irritated me within the first 10 minutes, and I have watched it all the way through finally, but yeah, I don't know what it was, it just didn't do it for me. Maybe it was the way that it was filmed. I found it very dark and hard to hear a lot, so that sort of turned me personally off on that. Having said that, my kids really liked it, so I don't know how to do it.
Are we allowed to use profanity here?
Well, there's no little kids. So.
No.
I thought that film was absolutely shite. Absolutely shite. From frame to frame, I wanted my 80 minutes back in my life.
The idea that it got distribution was weird for me too. I didn't get it.
I'm going, I almost said it there. Who funded this? Are you a filmmaker on it or something? No. I'll fish you out. I'll fish you out and say, how dare you do that? How dare you have no respect for film?
I was just curious, because horror seems to get the short stick a lot of the times in terms of funding for doing different and experimental things. You have to stick with the traditional what worked. So it was really interesting to me, even though it didn't necessarily work, that it was something different and it was sort of taking a chance.
It was absolutely different, and in that respect, it was great. I just personally didn't get it.
When you think about the budget of something like that, and there's a lot of films that independent horror. There's a lot of independent horror films that get shot for like $7,000, and you go, wow, and it shows. Well,
Hi. What are your guys' opinions on horror that is like directed more at like younger audiences, such as Coraline and?
Well, I love Coraline.
Well, obviously everyone loves Coraline,
But personally, for me, I'm a big kid, so anything like that, I consume like crazy. I like a lot of it. Again, I don't pretend to understand a lot of it because the mentality is very different. Me at 50 is very different than what I was at 18, and my tastes in horror have changed exceptionally in that time. Attack on Titan I loved. Coraline, I have 3 copies, including the book. Any of that stuff is really great for me, and I'd love to watch it with my grandchildren. So we're starting that new generation slowly. I like it. I don't know about these guys, so I can give you their opinion.
It depends on the movie. One of the things that the studios are starting to catch on to is that when you aim a film at a younger audience, kids are one thing, but any older, Gen Z doesn't give a fuck about movies or television series. 95% of them don't. So you're going to see a subtle shift now with what the studios are going to finance and their streaming divisions. But it's a good question. Is that your real hair? Oh. Okay.
Actually, there's a whole plethora of young people's horror, they call it, in books and things, and they consider Buffy it. I recently viewed, I don't know if this is considered a young person's horror, but Immaculate. I saw that last night. I don't know whether that's considered young person's horror, but I thought that was pretty cool, kind of like Rosemary's Baby, cool stuff.
Yeah, that's just Sydney Sweeney, isn't it?
No, there's young people's fiction. There's young people's.
Well, that's a tradition.
They've broken it up again, with like teenage horror. The slashers used to be that, where everybody would go and go and see these people having illicit sex. They said that too. And then getting killed for it, or that's essentially what it was. It's all blurred.
Well, I don't think horror is really specifically horror anymore because every genre sort of carries through. I'm writing a space fiction at the moment, and there's still a lot of horror in it because I apparently can't write anything where people don't die. There's no, like I said, there's just no specific. There used to be metal, and you were into metal, you were into country, you were into, dramas, romance, whatever, and it's all sort of intersected, I think, now. I find it different. The older horror just has that je ne sais quoi, something that the current doesn't have, except for Late Night with the Devil. That got me, that one.
Do we have any writers here? Like writers of fiction? Can I ask you
Hi, guys.
Can I ask you a nasty question? Have you ever used AI?
No.
I would be
Never?
6 feet in the ground
Use
before I
AI?
use AI.
Because there are some publishers that are absolutely totally against that. And so they will find out and they will name you if you do that. That was just, it's just something, because some people do use it as a springboard. I'm sorry I'm interfering with you.
I just had a question how you guys felt about the exploration of trauma through horror. Because I know that it can be used as a good tool, but is there a point where it goes too far, where it's almost trauma porn to say? Yeah. So I know the history of monsters have been sort of created for us to explore those different archetypes that we fear within ourselves, and that can be a great representation, but sometimes you watch a film and it just kind of leads a little too far. So what's that line?
We have movie nights, and my friend here finds some of the obscure stuff. We have watched a few where, frankly, it bordered on snuff, honestly, and that, I think, for both of us at one time was like...
There was a third person who goes by the name Susan Voorhees, and she makes giant VHS tapes of whatever movie you want, plastic, and you hang them on the wall. She came over that night, it was called Atros. And maybe 10 to 15 minutes in, we all looked at each other. And turned
That was
around.
the first time, actually.
Because at a certain point, it became human degradation. And I don't need to see it.
There's a definite difference between fun and gore and taking it to that level, I think.
Yeah, there's times when it's a little overboard.
Have you ever watched the video Nasties? This was a 70s film. It was in the UK. And it was bad. Like the Driller Killer was one. Some of the New York slashers, early films were one. The Last Horror Show. I watched one. I don't recommend this for this movie. It's called Necromantic. Did you really?
Yeah, watch it.
Necromantic is on. It was on the UK era version of it. Wow, because you want to be unsettled. For some people, it's not unsettling.
Well, they banned that in Canada for the longest time.
Yeah.
It was actually Video and Sound downtown who brought it in.
But fiction can also do that too. That's one. You're right. You know, there's a guy named Guyan Smith. He wrote stuff like grisly horror stuff about ripping tendons and stuff like this. And you go, why? You know, am I a medical student? What is all this?
Because if you're going to have gory, we may as well go all the way with it.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Ketchum made a career out of that, and so did Richard Lehman.
What's the point of gore?
It's fun.
What is the point of gore?
Reminds us
I'm
of us being
mystified
trapped
by
in our earthly bodies.
That's as good an explanation as I've heard.
Yeah, works for me.
I pitched Jack Ketchum. The one movie that's never been made of his work is called Off Season. And it was probably one of the most disturbing, violent books that I've ever read. So, by chance, I was talking to Jack Ketchum, and I said, I'd really like to do Off Season. Really? Yes, I really want to do it. Every scene intact. And I said, you know, I would be, producing it. And I would have been Herschel Gordon Lewis and directed. And he loved the idea. Not even 10 days later, he died. So I said, okay. It's that was rude.
You said no.
Hi. It's kind of a two-parter. One, if you've seen Speak No Evil, and what your thoughts are on them remaking it for English audience 2 years later, starring James McAvoy, and why do you think that is? Because that movie is pretty much in English.
Yeah, well, when it comes to remakes and reboots, the king of that is Jason Blum. And every single one he does is inferior to the original. But, you see, the thing is it's safe. Because you've got a built-in audience. And even if it does moderately well, and Blum never, the Halloween franchise, they shot those 3 films for about $10 million a piece. And most of that was Jamie Lee Curtis's film. So, I'm not a fan of it. It's like when they remade Martyrs. That was awful. There's no reason for it. Really, again, the original was fine. It was great. There was no reason to, do it in English. You're wearing an immobilizer.
I am.
Did you,
I tore my MCL.
okay.
Very good. That's funny.
You don't like Jason Blum? I'm sorry. Do you like Jason Blum's work? Blum House, I think it is?
Not all of it.
Not all of it.
Certain movies are good, but the remakes are not.
Yeah.
Very true.
He's got another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Jason Blum wants to remake, yeah, thank you. He wants to remake the Blair Witch. And you know why?
Blair Witch
How-
was fine.
If you can't improve upon it, then don't do it. I mean, the Blair Witch was, for its time, very scary, and it was fine. Sequels, I can't say were much good, but the hubris that it would take to say, oh, I'm gonna remake it and do it better.
Jason Blum also did Megan, which is pretty good. Yeah,
Megan
that was
was-
a little bit derivative on that. And people are wondering about this, but I like The Exorcist Believer. I quite like that. That was a nice little cruise up from the beginning, and some people might not have liked it, but I thought it was well done.
It was well shot and everything. I just, again, I'm not aware that it added anything, and it was certainly not the shock value or the kind of movie that could beat The Exorcist to this day. It just, but okay, it's an okay movie.
There's a difference between, I think we're talking about remakes and sequels. So, do you get a sequel from something like The Exorcist to this? And disregarding the other three that have done
Yeah,
for the major
well,
studios
two.
to this. Would that be a remake or would that be a sequel? Because sometimes they add stuff, stuff that they couldn't do.
Yeah, based on the trailer, it looks like a shot-for-shot remake.
That's like Saito did a few years ago. And I don't know why you would do that, other than it's an exercise. It's like revival in theaters. You want to have a revival, but half the time it's for the actors. It's not for the people. See how we do it again.
Well, the thing about the remake of Saito was every single shot was the same. There was a vehicle, and if you look at the license plate, it's the same license plate using the original Saito. Well, how should we differentiate this? Oh, why don't we just show us Norman Bates tugging one out? Brilliant.
A sequel or a remake now in the theater. What would appeal to you as a viewer or generally in here if somebody says, a sequel to, like,
Is there one you would like
is
to
there something you
see?
would like to see?
A sequel or a remake?
Sequel?
A sequel? I think there's a lot of movies that you could, I think there's a lot of horror movies that are now being made that are whole pieces. And you don't necessarily need to keep carrying it on, which is why a book makes them so good. A sequel that I would like to see.
A lot of times too, to interrupt briefly, a lot of times too, studios will take that and make it into a TV series.
Yeah.
Like
There's an
Exorcist.
Exorcist TV series.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
And Chucky's really good.
there's an abominable Netflix one. It had Frank House of Usher. There it is.
Yes.
House of Usher. Well, Frank Langella got fired off that. He was supposed to be Roderick Usher. You guys know the story about that? No, he was, I'm not telling tales out of school on this one. He was doing the scene, they shot 3/4 of the show for it, and they had a love scene. And of course, nowadays, for some reason, you have to have an intimacy coach. Why, I don't know.
Intimacy
It's called trust
coordinator.
with actors. I have an acting background. And when you learn, and when you work in the theater, you trust people on stage, as you do, as you learn. And they didn't have an intimacy coach. Langella put his hand on top of an actress. The scene, he said, "Do you like this?" She got panicky and left. He got fired because of that. They replaced him with this other clown, and God knows why. I'm sorry, I was done.
How many of you out there go to the cinema to watch horror? Good. That's a good answer because. Thank you very much.
I don't mean to pivot too much, and of course, as always, we can come back to the horror movie discussion. But have any of you read Junji Ito's work? Junji Ito, he's a mangaka in Japan who does horror.
I haven't. I think my boys have though.
Okay.
Well, I'm Japanese and I have.
Because there's an adaptation of one of his mangas coming out very soon on Adult Swim, and yeah, it's hopefully after it's been in the works.
Excellent.
But since you haven't, I don't have any.
There is a television series that's based on horror from Japanese folklore, which is interesting. Various styles and of animation. It's actually pretty good.
How do you guys?
Oh.
How do you guys feel about horror from other countries? I'm personally a fan of the Korean horror. Train to Busan was insanely beautifully done. It was deliciously done, and they knew their zombies too.
The sadness, that film. If you ever see The Sadness. Like,
that one too. How about Parasite? Did anyone see that one? What are your thoughts on that one?
It deserved the Oscar it won.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really interestingly shot and written film, wasn't it? I didn't watch it again. Hey, go for it.
I wanted to ask, a couple of years ago I watched this really cool horror movie called *Malignance*, and it was apparently inspired by the 70s Giallo films, and one of my friends recommended me to watch *Suspiria*, which is also kind of like a Giallo film. Apart from those two, are there any ones that you would recommend, and what would be the best way to watch the 70s Italian Giallo horror films?
Gentlemen.
give me a look at Jackal and a knife.
Download it with torrents. I didn't say that.
On a projector would be pretty cool too.
But yeah, I mean, I'm a filmmaker myself, and if something is really rare and you can't find it in any streaming service, it's not out there, then
Well, what's another good example? Like, I'm not familiar with the genre. Are there any particular directors I should look for, or maybe like a box set collection? Is there something on a streaming site that you would recommend?
Blood and Black Lace. Anything by Mario Bava. They're Italian names that I don't have on the tip of my tongue right now. Start with Blood and Black Lace. Suspira, the original.
Yeah, I saw the original. Yeah,
The original.
It's on the Criterion channel. There's a lot of like interesting horror films.
There's that. Guillermo del Toro does some borderline stuff like that, especially his early stuff.
I saw The Devil's Backbone. That was one of my favorites of his.
There's a whole ton of Edge of the Knife. There's just so many.
The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. You got to get into Argento, Dario Argento.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of that.
Yeah. There's, he's got, probably most of his work is giallo. So, it's a good place to start. And he's still making them. So, yeah.
There are box sets out too with Cat of Nine Tails. There's one about Tarantula or something.
Those have such wonderful names.
Strip for Your Killer.
I think that's
Strip new for your
either
killer.
Arrow Video or Kino Lorber that has these kind of
Arrow, yeah. Arrow just had a really good selection of it. Shut It Up actually does too, as well. It's just a brilliant, brilliant genre. There's some nasty stuff in it. Some of it can be pretty brutal. Bird with Crystal Plumage, if you see that, that is a classic. Especially the moment when he's watching what's happening and he's stuck behind a glass door. He's watching his death happen on his way floor. He's like, can't get out. So he can't help it.
And that's actually considered probably the first giallo film. But yeah, they always have such weird titles too. You know, The Man with the Purple Donkey.
Don't torture a duckling.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, there's always something about a serial killer who talks like Donald Duck.
You gotta love it, like, you know.
I have a couple more if I can ask them first.
Come on up, be heard.
Hey, I started watching horror it's probably too young, but over time I've gone through different media, so I kind of started reading subreddits, so like No Sleep and Let's Not Meet, and then soon they came out with a podcast version of it where they would do all the stories, and now they have audio dramas of like different like full series. It's like hours and hours of entertainment. Do you guys
Check out We're Alive.
We're
It's on
Alive? Yes,
Spotify.
yeah.
Scout's Honor is insane.
Mm-hmm.
There's another, I have it with me. There's several. Tales from the Break Room is really great, and actually the people that do that one do 5 different podcasts, and they're all horror-based. Really, some of the stories I've had to turn off, and I fall asleep to stuff.
Yeah.
So they're really good. They're really, really good for me to get freaked out. Yeah, it doesn't happen, so it's excellent. But yeah, all of those ones, anything by 9 Lambs, I think is the name of it. They are really fantastic, and they actually also take in stories. So for writers, it's fantastic because it gives us that other medium to get our work out there. And they do fantastic jobs. In fact, I have one coming out from them, I think at the end of the year. They're having an audio drama on my stories.
Yeah, well, awesome.
So
amazing.
Yeah, check out Spotify. They have some really fantastic horror podcasts, lots of true crime stuff on there.
Magnus Archives is great.
Was it? Which one was it?
The Magnus Archives.
Yes, yeah, stunning. I love that one too. Oh, and The Tower is fantastic.
Yes.
It's a 6-episode series.
I think 6, yeah.
And impressive, very, very impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy when they can just like transport you to wherever the story is.
It's like the old radio serials back
Yes.
in the day, you know.
That'd be you and me, Terry.
I'm not going there. But it really, some of them really reminded me of those War of the Worlds sort of radio serials that used to be out there way back when. And they're starting to touch on them again, which is fabulous.
That actually would have been one of my earliest we had a record player, and my mom had like an old record of, it was like a semi-scary story, and me and my sister used to listen to it all the time.
It's a lost medium, really, I think, and that's why it's starting to sort of make that comeback, is because people aren't seeing movies, and they're not even reading quite as much as they used to be. But podcasts and that sort of thing are making a huge comeback for that, and that's fabulous for people like us and that want to be out there and do that different sort of medium.
Totally, yeah.
Old time radio, there's a lot of horror. And when I used to listen to it when I was younger, I mean, you just close your eyes and you're the director. You know, you're imagining what's behind the door and that kind of thing. So in a way, it's a very visceral mental experience.
Totally, yeah, that's a good word, actually. It's very visceral, especially when you're not expecting what they're going to throw at you. Yeah, it's awesome.
I can't remember, but the guy in it, it's one guy who does everything in it, and it's probably one of the scariest that I've ever listened to. And I'll do, it's like, Arthur!
got shivers.
Yeah.
It really gets in the back of your
Full
head
body.
there. Yeah.
So good. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Since there's such a wealth of knowledge about horror literature here, I was wondering if you could recommend any authors, like contemporary authors right now that are doing cutting edge horror.
Joe
I'm
Hill.
out.
Joe Hill he has learned his trade at his father's knee very well and has surpassed him by leaps and bounds. Honestly think Joe is like, for my reading fun, my recreation, I've read over and over again because I get something different every time out of him. For horror, I have a lot of indie. I read a lot of Terry stuff.
It's horrible.
Stop it. You know, in our industry, especially for writers, as an extreme horror writer, there's very few women in the industry, so it's a little harder for us to get that joy out of the reading. For right now, it's just Joe Hill because I'm so busy doing movies and writing my own stuff. I'm not reading quite as often anymore.
Jack Kilborn is another one.
There's one.
And he writes gore after the fashion of Jack Ketchum, Richard Lehman. Yes, you're quite welcome.
I'm no good with literature. Book-wise for myself, I'm Algernon Blackwood style ghost stuff. Valancourt, book of horror stories. Valancourt is a printing house. They brought up some old ghost stories, which I find chilling. Algernon Blackwood made a beautiful story about a ghost hunter. These were written in the 1860s. And there was a sensitive moment for me because I have a thing about harming animals in horror films. And there's a scene in it when this dog is blinded by a ghost. And then the last scene, the dog looks up and he's got his eyes again and he jumps up on the owner and he's laughing at him and everything like this. And I thought, that was so utterly cool. And this is 1864. You're doing this, you know? And I don't know, I'm just an old school kind of guy like that. There's a gentleman who knows what he's doing.
Hi. I just had a question about general cutting edge horror. We talked a lot about horror movies and books, but how do you guys feel about horror games?
I'm not a gamer myself, but some of the trailers I've watched and watching my boys play, some of them are pretty impressive. For younger people, I guess it's not really, but Five Nights at Freddy, I kind of put for younger people, but it was pretty dark even so. The rest of it, honestly, I don't play games myself, so I can't say.
There's the Evil Within, that PC game. Well, it's PC, and there's another one called The Mortuary Assistant. That was an independent game. It was in New York. I worked for them. There's a story in that. But most of them are survival horror now. Resident Evil. How many have played Resident Evil? And there's like how many different games is it? I got lost count on it.
As for card games, there's a really great one called Crypt, and it's a 4-player game, and you collect bones and act as a necromancer, and it's kind of interesting. There's actually quite a bit of horror board games out, and I'm finding the D&D games are branching out into the horror as well. Some of the new editions and different things that are coming out have a lot of that horror element to it, which is really interesting.
There's Vampire. That one, that's a PC game. Spelled P-Y-R.
Yeah.
That actually is pretty cool. You can do a story-driven one, or you can just go around and kill people.
I mean, what fun, right?
And, there was one called, and it used to be a live action game and it mutated into a PC game, Vampire the Masquerade, which is, I remember playing an early version of it, and then there's the big PC one that came out, and now there's like 2 sequels that are out now. And yeah, those were pretty frightening stuff. You could pick who you could attack. A little more than survival horror on that. Is that what you do? Is that what you play, the survival stuff? And is that Fallout considered one of those things too? Like the series or?
Depends on the person.
Well, it's not really horror, it's just RPG stuff. The
More dystopian, I think, probably, right?
That's a very good question.
Or you open up a freezer, there's body parts of a person, animals will chop you up the back. It's elements there. Yeah, a lot more adventure.
Okay, who likes horror movies that are based on rock and roll? Who has a favorite?
Phantom of the Paradise. Does that count?
Is the theatrical poster for you?
I don't have any of these.
Now, the posters that were given away are courtesy of Prince Charming, P-R-I-N-T-S.
It's a blank page.
If you like horror posters, that's the place. If they don't have it, they'll special order it for you. It's, well, I've spent money there. I don't have an inch of space left on my walls in my horror cave.
It's true story, actually. If we're lucky, there's that much space between everything.
So, go ahead.
This is kind of a two-parter as well. What exactly are your thoughts on horror movies that are adapted from video games, like any of the Resident Evil movies or the 2 Silent films, or even the Five Nights at Freddy's ones?
The Last of Us show?
Or, yeah, The Last of Us? Like, what are your opinions on them?
For me personally, I thought The Last of Us was really well translated. There's few out there that, for video games, PC games, that translate well into film, as we all know. There's a few. There's a lot that are bad. Let's be honest. But for the most part, I thought it was translated really well. Fallout, I'm finding, is translated pretty well as well. For me, it's hard, especially because I'm not a gamer. I don't know a lot of it, so I'm literally going by people who actually do play that know that it's not following, the lore or whatever.
Resident Evil is, with Mila, you gotta kind of like them. But yeah, there's most of the adaptations are reasonably good.
What about the Silent Hill movies?
I didn't mind them.
Yeah, they were okay. They were fun.
Fun. They were a lot of fun.
They were.
Actually, speaking of Silent Hill, what's your opinion on psychological horror?
I love it. It's writing horror as a writer is so much easier to get into people's heads and figure out what scares them, and that's a joy for me. And it's kind of wrong, but here we are. It's a pleasure for me. My last publisher, I kept him up for 3 days, and it was a bucket list item, and I still am so proud of that because it was very extreme horror, and to have somebody who's in this industry go, I had to walk away and I haven't slept in 3 days, was the best feeling ever.
I think the basis of all horror is psychological. Because indeed, it's how it affects your psyche, whether it be a visual medium, an auditory medium, whether it's on the printed page, it's what scares you. And, there's always something that, comes back to haunt. When you were scared as a little kid or something, and all of a sudden, oh, there it is depicted. They say there's something that will scare anyone watching The Exorcist. Whether it be, at the beginning of the film, whether there was the dogs and that kind of thing, there was a little something for everyone.
My question actually pairs very nicely with that one. And when it comes to horror movies, do you prefer like a jump scare fest, or do you prefer like a slower build up and like with like build up and payoff and like more implications? And if your brain starts overworking, that almost provides the scares.
For me, slow burns are terrible because I have a very short span of attention, and so it's really difficult for me to go for slow burns. Having said that, jump scares are cool. When it happens, it's awesome. It doesn't happen very often anymore. I like not necessarily a slow burn. I like it when they come up and bang, the first scene, they're slamming you with something disgusting. That's my favorite kind of film. And there's not that many of them.
Going to the theater to watch movies in the 70s and the 80s, I think the actual first jump scare was in Friday the 13th Part 2, where she goes and opens up the fridge door and a cat jumps up. And you go, oh, gee, how did the cat get in? But it kind of catches you. I tend to look at it as a screenwriter as just manipulation that they use too much now. And it's like anything else. It's like the term fucking idiot. I tend to savor it, I don't use it often. And the same should be done with a jump scare. You make sure that, the audience isn't expecting it. And bang. If you had one good one per film, that's
like
good.
Woman in Black. With the birds that came out of the chimney, I'll admit, I jumped out of my skin. I was not prepared for that, and I laughed for the rest of the film. It doesn't happen. I think they have their place, jump scares. I just don't think they're necessary in horror films necessarily anymore. Everybody likes a good one, but there's so many other ways that you can get to people without having them jump out of their seats.
Thank you.
So who's a Hellraiser fan? Okay. Who saw the latest Hellraiser? Okay. Okay, you're going to be quick with the answer. Who's your favorite Pinhead?
I know you see people out there, but that just opened it.
Because, who likes the original Pinhead, Doug Brown?
Give me another one, Jim. This feed off.
What was the best Hellraiser film?
First one.
Who said first one first? I did. Again?
Yay! Do we have any filmmakers out there? I'm sorry, you have a question. I can think of Go ahead. Go ahead.
What do you feel about people who claim that horror contributes to violence in real life?
I guess as much as heavy metal contributes to violence.
Or Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. If you're on the point, if you're at the brink of doing something horrible, yeah, it might do it. But the average person, no. I've never gone and bought weapons from the Acme Corporation. But no, it's if you're on the cusp of doing something violent, if you're a bit of a sociopath, and there's all kinds of cases. Oh, we just wanted to see what it was like to kill somebody. Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, it doesn't take much to drive you over, you know, the edge. So, you know, the argument, they've been trying that for years, and it really doesn't stand. Because who's murdered people in the room here by a show of hands?
Does on paper count?
Because of horror. It's probably less than a 1%. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was testing you. It reminds me of a story that my next door neighbor was having, there was windows and they had bars on them, but he didn't want the bars on the windows. So a cat came in and dug these holes so that there could be a recessed thing by the windows. So I would take the guy out, nice tea, because it was summertime. And I said, hey, you wouldn't mind, I've got a dead hooker in my freezer in the garage. I said, before you fill in that hole, would you mind if I just throw it in there? And the guy's English was, and he goes, oh, yeah. There's a knock on my door. And the guy says, I'm going to fill that hole in if you want to bring me the hooker. And I wonder if I did have a dead hooker in my freezer, if he would have just smiled and said, anything else we can answer for?
I also have another question. How do you feel about horror that's literally just like splatterfest, like Terrifier, for example? Like it's not like for the first film at least. Like there's not much of a plot. It's mostly just killing. Like how do you feel about those?
I played Battle Royale, that kind of film, you know, where, you know, that's a Japanese film, the whole series where they're all stuck on an island and people run around literally just kill people. That's it. You know, in some ways it's evolved that with Fright, Nightmare on Elm Street rather became towards the end just a bunch of set pieces, you know, to set up the effect. And Freddy will say something witty and kill it. It has a place, it depends on the story. Battle Royale is different, that's a whole series of films.
At Terrifier, at least, you have, you know, you don't know what Art Reclam's motivation is, but you can buy it. There are certain films like the Guinea Pig series where it's just end-to-end hack and slash. And you go, well, at that point, it's really just gratuitous violence. It's okay to watch one, but I'm not going to watch all the sequels. You know, I mean, I don't mind when the effects are good. When they have to darken the set so that you can't really see the inadequacies of the gore effects. I'm not a fan.
What about CGI for you folks? Do you like CGI or practical? Good idea. Yeah, because, you know, Jim can announce on this too, a little bit. Like, practical is a little bit more, I would suggest it's tougher to do. CGI, you gotta have money. And some of it can look like crap, particularly, I'm supposed to say crap, but I did. Especially if you get a space film, a science fiction film, and you watch, you know, how many ways can you have to cheapen up a star field? You know, it's practical effects. I think do it if they're done well, and if they're done sparingly. You don't have to see every single little nuance. My preference of it. You know, if you get one or two moments, then it's good.
Horror anthologies.
That was a jump scare.
Horror anthologies, who likes them? Okay.
Looks like
You want to name your favorite?
Three.
You got it?
You got it.
You done?
Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
Am I done? Are we done?
We're pretty much done. I mean, you can rush that out, right? So that's why I wouldn't mind the extra, like.
We're here till 7. We have an hour and a half.
I don't think we
No,
I can
seriously.
ask. You got the last time.
No, we get 2 45 minutes.
We can send out for food.
No one has said Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Mania. Oh well.
That's what I was just gonna say, it's on Tubi, you can check it out, Blood Mania, he produced and directed it, so go check it out.
It's a horror anthology that has some of the alphabet in it.
There you go.
No, we're here till 7.
Do we have filmmakers out there? People that do gentlemen there, filmmakers and everything. Oh, filmmakers. Do we do features or short films or?
Very short. Any stop motion animation is very short.
Okay. Who saw stop motion? Did you enjoy it?
Hard, for sure, but I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. One of my friends. We were talking about movies based on video games. Who really likes Resident Evil as a series of movies?
A series of movies or a couple of movies?
Geez, now I gotta figure out a question. What other horror movies has Mila Jovovich been in? Okay, come on.
You want to left? What is your shirt say?
There you go. Resident Evil poster for you. So what horror movies have you watched that you don't think many people have watched, but you really enjoyed? Okay, that's on my watch list. I'll give you something to think about. There's one called the Monster Mash, and it's put out by the Asylum. And strangely, it's the first movie by the Asylum I really enjoyed. It's got all the monsters: Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, Invisible Man. But yeah, I guess the only down thing is Michael Madsen playing Victor Frankenstein. You know, you get used to watching somebody like Peter Cushing, and
It was
then.
better in Kill Bill.
But that's a good one. It's a good one to watch. And the one that I really enjoyed, totally enjoyed, was Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls.
It was brilliant, you guys, actually.
Funny, well done. Anybody ever seen, he's called the Weird Satan Guy on YouTube? Yeah.
That's
That's the guy who plays Onyx Fortuitous. It's also got Jeffrey Combs as the villain. Barbara Crampton makes an appearance. It's a really good movie. I'd recommend it to all of you.
One of the things that I have seen from some of the films that I saw, this is going to be into a slightly touchy area for some people. It's not about gore. It's about sexuality. If I get this right, LGBTQ films. There's a whole thing of queer horror. That's everything. And there is some really outstanding stuff. There's one that I saw called T-Blockers, which was from Australia. And it was about this fellow who is transitioning, and he's living, he's surprised, he's a filmmaker, and he can't get money for a project, he can't be himself. The government has just announced puberty blockers in their legislation. This is in Australia, of course, and he wants to date somebody. But it turns out that the fellow who wants to date him wants to date him because he's transitioning. He's not because who he is. And he leaves him. And it ends up that there's the subplot of the creation of these zombies. But actually it is a metaphor for persecution of people who are not heterosexual. And these are zombies, they're aggressive, they punch out people, they go to these LGBTQ clubs and beat people up. And they finally, there's this sword-swinging lesbian girl who comes on, and she just and she, standing there with blood and everything like this. There's a whole series of this whole genre called queer horror that I recommend. T-Blockers. It was just amazing. More experience. Horror is not just straight, it's not heterosexual, it's not that. It's a whole universe of that. It's true.
Who won the Annabelle? Okay. Well, I have a question for the rest of you people who like Annabelle. The original Annabelle. Boy, that was quick.
Funny enough, I had one of those Raggedy Ann dolls as a kid, and I hate dolls to this day, so yeah.
We kind of take ourselves, kind of seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously in what we do. I think that's a pretty good piece of advice, because there's so much in this horror genre that is very modeling, is very didactic, is very dogmatic. We have to do this, we have to do that, we have to follow this, we have to have jump scares and everything. For all you people out there that are writing, doing filmmaking, find your own voice, do the stuff, do the crap, try to get it done as much as possible. Don't take no for an answer. Sometimes there's a lot of crap out there, for writing, and there's a lot of stuff, as we have seen, there's a lot of stuff that crosses my desk and everything. But my advice is embrace the whole world, embrace your experience, and see what you have. Try to find your voice.
And it can just be an idea, guys. I'm working on a short, past few years, that's based on 169 words. It's gonna turn the genre on its ear, and I can't wait to get it made, but it doesn't have to be this ginormous idea with everything completely fleshed out. It could be something very short that just clicks right there, and it's enough to bring people in that want to be involved. So keep working at that part, it's really important.
So Terry was mentioning zombies. Who likes zombie films? Everybody. Okay.
Who doesn't like zombies?
Now, here.
I don't. Who wants to be one?
Fast or slow zombies?
World War Z zombies.
Nobody says slow? Slow zombies. Who's the father of the zombie? Now, I don't know whether this is for the original or for the 1990 remake. Either way, I wasn't gonna open it up to look. You're welcome.
Piece of paper.
So, who saw the last Jeepers Creepers movie? Did you like it? Really?
It's better than the second one.
You know what? Thanks. I'm trying to get rid of all the stuff we have. A vampire comedy, name one.
What are we doing? Leslie did it. Talking the vampire, Redfield.
Right. Blood-sucking blank. Okay, well, let's do this easy.
Blood-sucking vampires from Mars.
Who wants a blood-sucking bastards poster? You're quite welcome. One more left. Who enjoyed the It movies compared to the original It miniseries? All right. She used to be married to Johnny Depp and she pooped in his bed. Say I heard it first.
Awesome.
Well, it's funny how many people know about that.
It's a shitty time.
I think that's it for our prizes. So congratulations to those who won. And we have a few minutes. We're scheduled for 7, so let's open up the floor. Still got 20 minutes.
Have you seen, what did you think of Talk to Me, if you have seen it?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a well done horror.
It was made by
I was wondering what you guys think of the sort of liminal space backrooms type of horror. 'Cause I know there's a movie that's coming out from the freeze-fight YouTuber. Don't remember what his name is, but he started that yellow. Yes. Yeah.
I'm really interested, actually. I'm curious about it, so I can't wait for
Do you think it's like the fear of the unknown there?
Absolutely, and that's what I think everybody's afraid of in some way, shape, or form, is that what's coming, we don't know what's happening, and that's what we're
Question. There's movies that have been released before. Isn't that just that you're just kind of like dropped into? So I was thinking like their evil works or the platform. Do you think those movies deserve sequels, or is it fine that questions don't necessarily get answered at all before?
I think the platform doesn't need a sequel.
That was a great step.
It's like, who Who's seen the Japanese remake of Cube? Yeah. Was it necessary?
No.
No. Not some, so some of them yes, some of them no. It's entirely case dependent.
And I think when it comes to the foreign films, Japanese films, Korean films, for Hollywood, it's just the culture doesn't translate quite the same as it to North Americans as it does to other people. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of those sorts of remakes as well. Okay.
Oh yeah.
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 Absolutely
I
stunning.
haven't seen it yet.
But that had post-war against
Thank you.
Do you have any suggestions for like weird horror, like H.P. Lovecraft, Annihilation was a movie, kind of?
Did you ever see Suitable Flesh yet?
No.
That's very, I mean, it's Lovecraftian, what can you say? Barbara Crampton, great. Heather Grant. He's very good. Weird horror.
Weird fiction.
I see a lot of that, but it goes other way. You know, like a lot of films, I would have to look up what I've written, because there are some really odd stuff. There's one that was like puppets, life-size puppets. And they up their movies. I'll have to find the title, because I won't know.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Alright, so I was wondering, at what point do you think they should, like franchises in general, should stop making more before it kind of just goes down the drain? Because there's some where they kind of gone too much, and then it kind of just goes bad, goes good.
Well, I could say that for a lot of them. But again,
At what point would there be like that cap on stop?
as long as the studios and the streamers think there's a profit to be made, they'll just continue.
How about Halloween?
Uh,
How about Friday the 13th?
well, that's going to
After that Jason X, it was not everything. I don't like it going into space. I should
Christmas.
stop that man after 4.
Actually, I heard a rumor about Chucky in space.
That's already gone a little south already.
And the leprechaun.
It's Nightmare on Elm Street. It became a parody of itself after a time. Friday the 13th, maybe with the TV series Crystal Lake, if it's well done, and revive things. They should give Mike Myers a rest for a while.
Yeah, he deserves it.
I think he got the rest after it ends.
Yeah, I don't need to see a Mike Myers film for a while after that atrocity. It's a good example is Return of the Living Dead. First one, brilliant. Second one, good. But it was basically the same story. And the ones after that, like, would you please stop? You know, Necropolis, and it was awful.
And actually, I think the zombies, we kind of maybe need to give it a rest for a little while and let the interest come back a little bit. Because at this stage, I think it's kind of overdone.
Well, I mean,
I love them. Like, don't get me wrong, I love zombies, but.
well, The Walking Dead should probably take a break. You know, I mean, even the British shown one that I held out a lot of hope for. It was, not great. So they can take a break. Revisit in 5 years. It's one of those things. But yeah, there's a certain point. All the fans know it. Like, oh, this is shit.
After the fans know, they kind of
Yeah, well, a new one comes out, well, maybe it's better than the last one. I mean, a lot of the Chucky movies kind of sucked. Luckily, the new series doesn't. So, yeah, it's actually really good. I get a kick out of it. But I don't know, I think the fans know what the studios do.
Look, there's a new movie.
Another candy gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, hi. So I was going to other J-horror American remakes like The Ring and The Grudge, as those are really considered like the only good ones.
Old Boy was pretty good, but the Japanese was not.
Yeah, and I was just wondering on how do you feel about those remakes at all?
I think a lot of the remakes are done for the sake of doing them. There's the based on the fan base and hoping that fan base will continue on.
But remember, at that time, with the Grudge and that sort of thing, there weren't places really to watch the original. So they were getting the story out to a North American audience, and whether they're inferiors, or superior, hard to tell. But, Hi.
So, after the first two movies, I don't know which word, but they're planning on making a huge, big amount of kids' movies into these crazy horror movies. How do you feel about that?
Well, a lot of times what it does is it kind of craps on my childhood. Like the Banana Splits movie. I used to love the Banana Splits. I'd get up on Saturday mornings and I'd watch the Banana Splits, and they were innocent, fun, goofy. And then they just kind of trampled on my memories. I thought Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, apart from a couple of sequences, just blew. I haven't seen the second one yet. Good. Yeah, I imagine it would be. They had a budget. Yeah, so, it's, I guess it depends. Now you got Mickey Mouse. They're making Mickey Mouse horror. So, well, do we need it? Like there's that one Steamboat that's coming out where Mickey Mouse is a serial killer on a boat. Everybody knew. Yeah, no, it's again, it's anything for a buck. And again, there's enough people who enjoy it that it makes a profit. And that's really, let's face it, that's the whole basis for anything they do is to make money.
That's partially due to the way they distribute films now, which has changed. Besides theatrics, we have, of course, the streaming service. We have something called VOD, so we're directly to the digital system.
Well, at least VOD pays the filmmaker.
Yeah, go to Tubi. The Saska sisters put their latest one out directly to Tubi. Tubi finances films. So, yeah, so Weekend of the Living Dead. That's Saska sisters, pretty cool stuff. Few zombies and gore, that's there.
you so much.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi, I have a question for you. I grew up on this TV show on Saturday night called Chiller Thrill. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Chiller View?
Chiller Thriller.
Chiller Thriller.
And it was a series where they would play friends, Dracula, werewolf, whatever, any of those. Anyway, so I was curious for each of you, what decade of horror really influenced you towards your type of writing that you do today?
Hitchcock, definitely. Definitely. I think I cut my teeth. Carrie was the first one I watched, and the second one was Saito.
Oh, yeah.
I was 12. So I watched it, and it changed the whole outlook on how, because I've been wanting to write since I was a kid, so the whole way that they did things changed everything for me.
What about the birds?
I wasn't a fan, actually. It didn't do it for me, but Psycho, for some reason, I had nightmares for years and years over that. It's weird.
I think the very first film I saw that scared the poop out of me in the theater was When I Was Living Dead, 68. I had never seen that before. I saw that with you're young, a younger version of me. And I had never seen it. I tried to joke about it, even when I left the theater. I kept saying pigeon toes, mocking me like that. No, that whole scene with the eating of that chick.
Yes.
And the stabbing of the little girl.
Yeah.
That got me totally. And after that, I've been watching films. Because I was born in Ottawa, so we used to get things like Horror House. You know, we got not Night of the Living Dead, you get the Wolfman.
Right.
You get It Came from Outer Space.
Yeah.
The Wasp Woman. All of these things. 68, George Romero.
For me, my favorite era is the 80s, but I grew up with the 70s. And I'm a huge fan of Panelists productions and their horror anthologies. It's what influenced me to make a horror anthology myself. But yeah, giallo films and that kind of thing. I grew up in Lethbridge.
Okay.
And on Friday nights we would have, they didn't really call it chiller, thriller, or horror fest or anything, but they'd always run Universal and Hammer films. And that's what I really cut my teeth on. I think the first horror film I ever watched was called from the 60s, called Mr. Sardonicus. Oh, it's what a guy. This figure, and he takes off his mask and he's got this huge rictus. Scary as a kid, but it's good. And the 80s became, well, for a young guy, the nudity, the gore, the practical effects, strips may not have been wonderful in certain cases, like sorority babes and slime bowl grandma. But yeah, that's my era. And when I can find a new 80s flick that I've never seen as like a kid.
No, that's great. Thank you.
It's welcome.
I was wondering about monsters, because there's a lot of classic monster archetypes that we all know and love, like the vampires and the zombies, and how they all kind of came from some sort of more deep-seated fear throughout history, and they've evolved with that. Like when I saw Renfield, and they turned that idea of vampirism into social vampires, and battery draining and manipulation in that manner. I was wondering if you guys, what your favorite monster is, and or what kind of drive for a monster you guys are fans of.
Frankenstein's monster, Frankie's Boy is, I love Frankie's Boy. And the book, Miss Shelley's book was insane. I've I've read it so many times. And that influenced me a lot because the monster's not really a monster. He's more of a victim. So it was interesting to me to see how they portrayed the monster through the years. Most of them haven't gotten it quite right in my opinion.
I mean, when you guys brought up zombies too and how that seems overdone, that's one that hits me too because one of the biggest, the most terrifying parts of that wasn't getting eaten by a zombie, it was being brought back as a zombie because then you were supposed to be in your eternal rest and now people brought you back for essentially slave labor.
Right?
Just what we sleep, dude.
Hammer touched on that because the stories, if you look at the Hammer films with Peter Cushing, they're the stories of the doctor, of the villain, not the monster. And it changes the experience of it because essentially it is, Frankenstein is the title, it is the miraculous and the victim of Frankenstein. So there's a difference in the way that things are told. For me, it's always been the vampire. The way that they have been, it's like the beast, the way he changes the way he ages, the way he's portrayed from somebody like yourself, the way that you're addressed. Again, a person on the street, to this doctor, clothed person, it's gone through the ages. In books, in film, it just transcends everything. It's always people that handle like video.
Me, it's the Wolfman, not werewolves. A Wolfman. There's a big difference.
Just
Well, a Wolfman walks on two legs. The lycanthrope, like in Underworld, is a moping sort of wolf. But it's always the idea of the Wolfman himself. Really kind of. I liked.
Was there something specific about the Wolfman, or it just resonated with you?
Well, it's more often than not, it's somebody who's been bitten inadvertently, and now they have to suffer. And they, I don't really want to, go out and kill, which is why you see in a lot of movies they're chained up and they're locked in because, so it's a very human thing where we could look and go, if I was in that situation, I would be very happy.
It's a matter of morals over survival, which can be challenging.
Absolutely.
Some people say about immortality, but yet today, some people have difficulty filling an afternoon with activities. Do you want to live for a million years?
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
How do you feel about the Scream movies?
Oh, I love them. I think they're so fun. And Neva's just, she's amazing. Yeah.
Have you seen her?
We got our pictures taken with the actors of Billy and Stu, and then we saw their talk yesterday.
Yeah, Neva, I love her.
What I can't believe is how much autograph prices she's on.
Yeah.
$80 general.
Bill Shatner was
That was for the photo op. Shatner was like 60 back then. The prices for these things were much less pre-COVID.
I'm sure.
One person who was freaking me out was the person in the nurses with and all she did was stare. And he's trying not to.
I have a dumb question. Are you a Harry Potter person?
Yeah, I'm a Harry Potter person.
What do you think of Rowling's stance on things?
I hear. I don't like her. No.
Yeah, she ruined a lot by.
Even like Daniel Radcliffe, that I feel like I'm more on like this side of Harry Potter, that you love the books and the series, don't let her tarnish anything for you.
And he's one of them.
Yeah, he does.
Yes, she did. Power for what people believe, they kind of hard to say. But she might have done some damage there, but it's not going to harm her because she's doing other things. So, I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you all for sticking around. Thank you.